Let me talk a bit about What If Season 3. In a nutshell, What If Season 3 was very weak. It was the last season, and if this was the trajectory the show was going to follow, I'm not sad to see it go. I remember reading What If way back when I was little, and starting up again when it relaunched and the stories turned darker. The whole premise was to take a well known comic book event and change one thing. What if A instead of B? Then the writers could follow that line and show readers an alternate continuity, sometimes better, sometimes worse, always different. For example, in the X-Men, what if Wolverine had stayed with Alpha Flight instead of sneaking back on board the X-Men's airplane when they left Canada after a showdown in Calgary? In that comic, the X-Men turned back to retrieve their friend and were all destroyed. What if Rogue had absorbed Thor's mind completely, killing him, but rendering her worthy of wielding Mjolnir due to becoming one with his godhood and nobility? What if Xavier had died after being infected with the techno-organic virus instead of Apocalypse being able to save him? Stuff like that. It all started with an actual event in Marvel canon. Uatu, the Watcher, was basically a stand-in for the readers. Pre-internet readers had no way of sharing their opinions and speculations and theories outside of actual earshot. You would talk to people you knew who also read comics, and sometimes it was a pretty lonely experience. My hometown of 1,200 people didn't have a ton of places where you could buy comics, let alone people to share the experience with. Uatu was a proxy, in a way, for all of the discussions that take place now online. The comic itself was an outlet for the writers, too, a way to look at different plot lines and see how they would have panned out. Season 1 of What If was a lot like that. Episode 1 had Peggy Carter becoming a super soldier instead of Steve Rogers. Just change one event and see what happens. Episode 2 has Yondu making a mistake and abducting T'Challa instead of Peter Quill. One change. The same with the rest of the season. Small but plausible changes to real events from the films leading to very different outcomes. Everything was basically standalone. But the final season 1 episode, episode 9, changed things up with Uatu gathering a team of heroes from various realities to fight Ultron, and later Killmonger, who had each gained control of the Infinity Stones. On its own, that episode was okay. Uatu has interfered in the comics before, violating his oath to aid the Fantastic Four in their first encounter with Galactus, for example. However, it was Season 1, Episode 9's divergence from the premise that set things in motion and broke the promise of a true What If series. Season 2, while entertaining, largely stopped using small changes to existing film events as catalysts to explore what could have happened if things had taken a different turn. Yondu takes Peter Quill directly to Ego instead of raising him as a son. That's in keeping with the premise, I guess. Tony Stark doesn't come back from the wormhole at the end of Avengers and winds up on Sakaar. Acceptable, I guess. Nebula joins the Nova Corps after Ronan stops Thanos. Happy Hogan becomes a Hulk and saves Christmas. Not What If, more like What the F? Then a Captain Carter episode untethered from any cinematic events? Unacceptable. A standalone episode featuring Native Americans and the emergence of a new hero. Good story, but not a what if story. So many plot lines were unrelated to events in the films. It culminated with Captain Carter and a few other multiversal beings saving the day as Uatu sweeps up a mess again. This is not the premise. On top of that, the writers and producers seemed to want each season to end with a crossover event featuring Captain Carter. And that brings us to Season 3. Ouch. What if The Red Guardian stopped the Winter Soldier from killing Tony Stark's parents. That is okay. What if the Eternals failed and a Celestial was born, destroying the Earth? That comes from an actual film, so I accept it as a what if story. A Gundam-style Avengers story? Taken from what pre-existing event exactly? Agatha goes to Hollywood and fights the Celestials? Where did that come from? Howard the Duck and his human wife? Had a baby who is a cosmic level force? That comes from what major plot line precisely? Then a throwaway Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop story set in the Wild West. What cinematic event was altered to make that happen? None. It's so random. Finally, Uatu is getting punished by his Watcher brethren, and a strange team, including some people we have never seen in the MCU, work together to save him, including a Thor storm and Howard the Duck's adult child, and Captain Carter, of course. The most annoying thing? In the final episode, when the heroes are on the ropes, Uatu has them recite an oath so he can grant them Watcher-level powers. Are they Green Lanterns without rings? Is Uatu Shazam and can share his power with people? Is he Galactus making heralds? Did the writers know nothing? Just gotta shake my head. And then it was over. The episode, the season, the series. I've seen some speculation that writers were ordered to use only characters from phases 4 and 5. But there were so few films to draw from. Phases 1 through 3 had 23 films. So much potential for what if. Phases 4 and 5 had a total of 10 films that had come out, not counting Deadpool and Wolverine. Altogether, though, that makes 33 films to act as seeds for what came out to be 26 episodes. More than enough to base all 3 seasons of What If on existing cinematic events. Of course, it was a Disney Plus series, so taking inspiration from other Disney Plus series would seem fair game. Anyone watching What If should have access to those Marvel series as well on streaming. But they didn't mind possible stories from Disney Plus series, only the character of Agatha. And they didn't draw much from phases 4 and 5 either, except for some characters. Not plot lines, really. And they didn't find crucial, pivotal events from existing films to explore. They just pulled some crap out of thin air and made an unengaging season to cap off what was a progressively disappointing series. For example, why not? What if Mysterio had succeeded in taking over Stark Industries? That would have been more interesting than making him the villain of the Destroyed Earth episode. I also heard that they wanted a central hero for viewers to follow, that being Captain Carter, as it turned out. Unnecessary. They should have just trusted the premise and given us standalone episodes seen through the eyes of our surrogate, Uatu, the Watcher, and let us see how things could have been if certain events had gone other ways. Sad. Just sad. They took a premise that could have generated stories for the foreseeable future and threw it away to force a Captain Carter-centric pseudo-Avengers multiversal storyline on viewers out of nowhere. Take heroes that we already know and love and show us alternate lives, some tragic, some heroic, like what if Hawkeye had fallen instead of Black Widow? Like what if Thor had snapped instead of Hulk? Maybe other gods would have gotten into the fight. What if WandaVision had not ended and the whole world had become her playground? So many things they could have done, taking ideas the audience was already invested in to play with viewers' emotions. Such a waste. Anyway, did you watch season 3 of What If? What did you think of the series as a whole? Were there any episodes that you liked or vehemently hated? Leave a comment. I'm interested in your take on things. Thanks for watching. See you next time.